I think what we're seeing for the first time in American history, since America has become like a worldwide cultural institution starting like the early 1900s to some extent, is you're having creative types fleeing these liberal, currently democratic areas like LA, New York, and everyone's moving to red states, to Austin, to Miami, and a few others. This has never happened before, where the creativity goes to the Republican Party. And I don't see how you reverse that trend.
What do you think comes after this? You've had a pretty good track record on projecting all of this, and I think you have a good sense of the general weather.
One of the things I'm very optimistic about the future, as I said earlier in the show, and in general. And when I'm optimistic, I think optimism has to be based on data. It's not just like everything's going to be fine. That is not the case. There's many cases where things are not fine, or they're only fine after a very long period of time. One of the things I am shocked and delighted by is how many people on the right, especially conservatives, have seen the cops for what they are. As you know, I'm an anarchist. Could not have a worse opinion of the police, but they are understanding that the police are not their friends. The police will follow any law that is being passed. And when these conservatives start defending the police, I ask them, how much money would it take for Gretchen Whitmer to force you to lock an old person in their home? How much money would it take for Andrew Cuomo to tell you to keep someone away from their dying mother in a hospital? So it's a question of conscience. If you're going to just follow orders, if you're going to waive the basic element of what separates us from the lower animals, this sense of right and wrong, and we see it in city after city after city, the police stand down, and the only people who are punished are those who have guns or those who are trying to defend themselves or their communities. In fact, we saw, I believe it was in Portland, when the Attorney General Barr sent in federal troops to guard the courthouse, he was the one who was hauled before Congress and having to explain himself, how dare you send in troops to defend federal property from being destroyed? It's a complete Kafkaesque upside-down world.
So how much damage has to happen to these cities before something turns around, either through the people or through better governance, I suppose? I know that's not really your thing, but does Portland have to just completely become ground zero? Does Seattle have to collapse? Does New York City? Does LA, San Francisco? What actually do you think has to happen at the human level that gets people going, okay, we got to turn this around? Or does everyone just have to flee the cities?
I think what we're seeing for the first time in American history, since America has become like a worldwide cultural institution starting like the early 1900s to some extent, is you're having creative types fleeing these liberal, currently democratic areas like LA, New York, and everyone's moving to red states, to Austin, to Miami, and a few others. This has never happened before, where the creativity goes to the Republican Party. And I don't see how you reverse that trend. The question's going to be, how did LA get destroyed? To quote Hemingway, two ways, gradually and then suddenly.
Yeah.
I don't see a mechanism or even a desire, because when people complain in these cities about how hard it is, Cuomo's a great example of this. There was a press conference during this whole COVID thing, and he was asked, how you're destroying these small businesses, and very flippantly, he was like, well, if I have to choose between a lot of people dying and a lot of businesses going out of business, it's not an easy choice, but it's also in one sense not a hard choice. So there's not even a sense of hand-wringing, what have we done, what has the cost been, because it's very useful for the corporate media to not speak about trade-offs. Thomas Sowell, who I adore, and you're obviously a huge fan, talks about, instead of thinking about good or bad, at what costs and compared to what, to talk about costs and benefits. But they don't want to think about costs and benefits. They don't want to think, okay, this is a good thing, but it's expensive, or this will help this group, but it's hurting these 10 other groups. It's more like, it's the right thing to do, don't ask any questions. And if something is the right thing to do in the short term, that's certainly a possibility, what are going to be the long-term costs and how do we fix it? They were tripping over themselves in 2008 to bail out the banks. And now every little business that I loved in New York, stores have been around since the 70s, the 50s. They're boarded up. The signs are still there because they were proud. This is a family institution. They're gone and they're never coming back, and no one cares.
Do we have to jail some of these people? I mean, is that like the end, that basically Cuomo and Whitmer and Newsom, that it's very obvious there was no science behind the lockdowns. They decided to destroy millions of lives.
Kill the elderly.
I think that literally kill the elderly in Cuomo's case and probably in Whitmer's case.
Well, no, not probably. Let's talk about that video. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that video that went viral. There was this kid, I think he was 17, 18, 19, was in a nursing home and was beating up elderly people in their beds and posting it on social media. This went viral.
Oh, was that in Michigan? I know what you're
It was Michigan, yes.
Okay.
He was in those homes because by law, it was mandated they're going to be quarantining them in these locations. So it's not maybe. She was killing person after person. And I have I'm sure you saw this on Twitter. If you go to governorstogitmo.com, I've got the T-shirts that's my answer to this problem.
Right, so, but really,
But just one more thing, Dave, I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's not going to change until politicians have consequences on a personal level for their malfeasance and depravity. I don't know what that looks like, but it's certainly more than them getting voted out of office. This cannot continue, and I think they are pushing America in a very dangerous direction. Brinksmanship is something that very rarely has a happy ending.
Well, it's like every day now in California, Newsom's coming out and we're giving you stuff, more money for you guys. And it's like, wait a minute, how do progressives suddenly think giving us money is good? I thought that taxes are bad, but it's all the tax money you took from us in the first place. I mean, I know none of it really makes any sense. Right. But okay, if voting amount's not enough, I mean, really, what do you think, either the jailing or like, what are we going to send them to the Phantom Zone? Like, what are we going to do with these people? I'm okay with the Phantom Zone, but really, like, what's the real thing? Because these people deserve none of our respect or attention or money or power or anything.
I think something that's you just hit the nail on the head. One of the things that President Trump did very, very well, and there's a lot of things he didn't do so well, is he demonstrated that these people should not be treated with respect, but be treated with open, brazen contempt. If you are telling me that I cannot hug my child, if you are telling me that I can't see my mother breathe her last breath in this hospital, this is not like, well, I've got one opinion, you've got another opinion, let's just kind of hash it out and agree, disagree. This is completely, in my view, beyond the pale, and the time for conversation has ended. And the thing is, the Republicans need to go on offense instead of constantly having to apologize and discuss the hard left's idea du jour. Here's one example. Everyone now in this country who's politically minded has an opinion on whether we should defund the cops, right? Everyone talked about it, most people are against it, but everyone discussed it. Why is no one discussing ending birthright citizenship? My personal idea is to have using the Second Amendment and using the logic of Obamacare, make gun ownership mandatory. The Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia, which means a militia of citizens who are regulated, who are informed and practiced in the use of their firearms, is necessary for free people. So either you get a gun or you can't vote, things like this. Now, the New York Times is going to freak out. The Washington Post is going to freak out. Don Lemon is going to, have a meltdown on air. That's going to happen regardless. Yeah. Ann Coulter had this great quote where she says, "Attention Republicans, if the New York Times isn't calling you racist, you're losing." So
for the record, called me a white supremacist this week. Pretty good.
Did they really?
Yeah, well, they asked Andrew Yang why he goes on white supremacist shows, in effect. Me. They called it the Dave Rubin Show. This is the Rubin Report. I couldn't even get them to retract that. I didn't even care about the white supremacy part. I was like, we've done that a million times already. But they got the name of the show wrong. They wouldn't even fix that.
But you know what else is amazing?
So it's an honor.
It's also amazing that you would ask a politician, why would you want to promote your views on a place that has an audience? It's really funny because on the one hand, you have the Maxine Waters types, and I do like her antagonism and aggression, I'm not going to lie. But she's saying if you see someone from the Trump administration at the gasoline station, at the mall, you go up to them and you say you're not welcome here. You would expect them to, if you are a white supremacist, if you're a homophobe, if you're an anti-Semite, all these things, which we know you are, to come here and be like, screw you, Dave Rubin, you're terrible, your ideas are horrible, you're this, you're that, and so on and so forth. That, you want to take the fight to the enemy.
Malice, this is why I love you, Malice. It's a great point.
I don't know, where is he?
It's somewhere over here.
Sorry.
I think, it's over there. It's a great point. On one hand, they're saying, get in their faces, don't let them have an inch, blah, blah, blah. And then on the other hand, they're saying, don't talk to them at all and pretend they don't exist.
And we saw a great example of this when Brian Stelter from CNN. He had a panel, and they were freaking out that venues like Tim Pool, like your show, Joe Rogan, several others, have bigger audiences than CNN, and people are getting the wrong information, by which they mean information they don't like.
Yeah.
And what are we going to do about this? So their agenda is basically, well, let's pretend the Dave's Rubin don't exist, the Tim's Pool don't exist. Well, that became too hard. Your audience is too big. Your social media following is too big. Now it's like, well, on an individual level, maybe we'll starve him out of guests. You have no shortage of people, idiots from Brooklyn, dressing like Question, banging down your door to try to get on this show. So that's not really going to work, but it shows their desperation in the fact that they're running out of ideas.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.